Today, Emily and I are joined by Bill Ottman, the co-founder of Minds.com. You know, people always think I'm saying Minds like a landmine, but it's Minds.com, a social media platform. And we're going to have a conversation about, Facebook, the data scandal, some of the rules. Social media seems to be in a kind of a precarious position, and so who else is better to speak about this but Bill Ottman, one of the co-founders of a social media platform. This is the Culture War Podcast.
Virtual Shield is a virtual private network service that can help keep you and your data safe as you browse the web. Whether it's a hacker, big business, or government actor, your data can be stolen and spied on. With Virtual Shield, you can protect your privacy and add a simple layer of defense to your internet browsing. Virtual Shield also offers IdentiSafe, which can provide increased levels of security for those that are looking for more. They can help monitor your computer in the background and periodically scan your computer to make sure you're not at risk, and even block remote access to your webcam and microphone. Keep in mind, no security is perfect, but with a VPN you're adding a simple but effective layer of defense to protect your privacy and your data. Go to virtualshield.com/Timcast and use the promo code TIMCAST to get 20% off and no payments for 30 days. There is never a guarantee of security, but that doesn't mean we don't lock our doors and take effective measures to protect ourselves and our families. For those that are interested, I've included the link to Virtual Shield below.
For those that are just tuning in, my name is Tim Poole. I'm a journalist. You can find me on Twitter at Timcast. Joining me, we have...
I'm Bill.
Bill, do you have a URL? Do you want to promote?
Yeah, hit me up, minds.com/Ottman, Ottman.
There it is.
And I'm on Twitter and Minds at MomesMolly, MOMESMOLLI.
Yeah, let me do that again. I am also on Minds at minds.com/TIMCAST, minds.com/Timcast. And I do use it every day, and I'm actually increasing slowly. I think Minds is, I guess the way I would describe it to people is it's kind of like a better version of Facebook. It's got encrypted chat, is my understanding. Bill is nodding for those that are listening. And it's integrated with now crypto. It's integrated with a ERC20 token that's like a cryptocurrency thing. So I just look at it. It's kind of more. It's just like Facebook. I think that's what most people need to realize. It's you go on, you have a profile, you can post things, you can share things, you can upload videos. It really does everything. It's got aspects of Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the big networks. And so I think it's one of the reasons I like it. And I am trying to do more to interact more with the people who follow me on there, because one of the most important things about any social network outside of the big three, I guess you can call it, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, are people using it? And the story I've always told people is, I had a bunch of people recommend Minds to me, and I signed up for it and was like, I've signed up for a bunch of different social networks, and if people aren't using it, what can you really do? And so then one day I decided to just go onto Minds and see what's up. I had 7,000 followers. Like, there were actually a lot of people on Minds who were following me, who knew me, and I wasn't sending them any content. So I was like, whoa. So I started using it, and now I think it's been just over a year. I've got close to 40,000 followers. So not the most followers for any platform, but that's a pretty decent following for a social site. And so I started uploading regularly, or posting my YouTube videos regularly, and now I'm actually writing copy for Minds, whereas I usually just put the link. Now I actually started writing stuff out. That's because I found that I actually get a decent amount of comments, thumbs up, shares, and all that stuff. So this is, I got to say this every time, because people are always like, are you sponsored by them? No. It's just, I think Facebook is garbage, and I'm excited for alternatives. And I think Minds is actually got a decent user base. It works. It's got better functionality. So I'm not here to, plug Minds.
Hey, I'm here to support all open source, more internet freedom-oriented platforms. It's not just about Minds. It's we just do everything the opposite that Facebook does. So it's like similar functionality, but opposite foundational principles.
Okay. How about we start with the Facebook problem, and then we can just move in. I think, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we talk about the most pertinent issues and why other social media networks are important. But I think, Bill, you probably have some key insights into, what's going on with Facebook. So for those that haven't been following the news, I assume many of you have. Big data scandal. I mean, data from Facebook on 50 million users was being used by Cambridge Analytica, a data firm that was working on the Trump campaign. They're building what they call psychographic profiles of people. They're trying to figure out how people would vote and how to target them with ads to get them to vote in certain ways. And apparently, they were using data they weren't supposed to have access to. So are you familiar with what happened?
Sure.
Okay, I want to hear it from you because you've got more of an inside view on this.
So one of their chief growth officers, there was another leaked memo from him talking about, growth at all costs. For them, they just want to infect your phone. They will pull everything and anything possible. All that matters is that they're connecting more people and keeping their numbers going up. So, in some way, the Cambridge Analytica thing is really bad. Lots of foul play on both sides, but it's also not necessarily new information. I mean, there's so many different levels. There's the government surveillance going on. There's the corporate surveillance. There's the selling of data to the advertising companies and to analytics companies. And, they just don't let you own your data. They don't let you delete your data. They don't let people know the whole trail of the data. Yeah.
Well, I think there's always one important thing that needs to be brought up because this is always left out of this conversation. I had people arguing with me saying, dude, Facebook just rolled out these features where you can delete your data. You can go to settings and click, download my data, and you can see what they have, and you can request they remove it. But Facebook is collecting information from people about you, not from you, right? So, so for those that are listening or watching, like I'm explaining this for like the 8th time for my channel, but when you give your phone number to a friend, you expect them not to give your phone number out to random people. Facebook will ask them for your phone number and they will give it up. That is not your friend's information. It is your information. When you say to Facebook, delete my data, they don't tell you what they've collected from other people. Your text messages, your call logs, people you've texted or called, Facebook knows, but they never ask you for it. So I think, what I find particularly interesting is that this might be a violation of some eavesdropping laws. Facebook doesn't have a right to take access to take someone else's data.
Well, there's a lot of lawsuits coming at them right now.
Yeah.
It's really all about what you have to sign up knowing what you're getting into. You have to read the terms, and you just don't want to. And so I think people passingly knew what was going on, and they actually, to a certain degree, did consent to it, which is a problem as well. So there is a level of user responsibility that matters.
Yes, I would say yes, but
I'm not taking that side. I'm just saying that that's a part of the conversation.
I think so, yeah. I think one of the arguments that I made in one of my past videos is that we did agree to give up a lot of this information. But you have to realize you don't necessarily understand what that means. Mm-hmm. What Facebook is doing when they take your information, and they take a lot of hold on, let's contextualize this. You ever gotten one of those advertisements for some product you walked past in a store, and you're just like, how did Facebook just advertise this to me? And so everybody is assuming they must be spying on us. They must be listening to our phones. They must be using our cameras, because how else would they know? The story I tell people is my brother and I went to Walmart. We saw a TV. We get home 10 minutes later, my brother sees that exact TV from Walmart as an ad on his Facebook. It's because Facebook is collecting so much data on you from third parties, from you, that they can predict your behavior.
And location is a huge
exactly,
role,
right.
Yeah.
So they know you're at Walmart, and so they're going to be like, based on everything we know about you and where you are, we think you're probably going to be in the electronics section, and guess what? We were. And that's freaky.
Well, there's microphone chip there you go. There's a ban from YouTube ads.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get demonetized. No, it's whatever. For like iTunes and stuff, we have to put like an explicit thing, but it doesn't matter.
But so basically, our route to tackling this is we don't require any personal information. So you can have a fully anonymous account if you want. And our goal is to ultimately provide both options, centralized and decentralized options for storing data. So that, because everyone's like decentralized, that's where we need to go. But at the same time, like when you publish to the blockchain, you can't delete that.
Yeah.
So people need to understand that in different contexts, you may want to be able to delete your data more easily, in which case a centralized option could be good. So it depends if you're trying to get something out there really, or what the context is going into the post. It's always about user communication. telling the community, this is how we're treating your data, these are your options, turn them off anytime, just constant communication. They're just shady. They weren't communicating properly.
Well, so explain to us centralized versus decentralized.
So typical social networks, Twitter, Facebook, much of mine's infrastructure is on a server in a facility somewhere that we have the keys to, and we store a lot of public data in it and encrypted data in it, and it's in the hands of a single individual, us, yeah. So we don't even want all the personal information. In personal information that we do have, we encrypt so that we can't even see it, like Messenger, for example. And so now our whole monetization and advertising system is on the blockchain, so that's off our servers. That's in computers all around the world. But a lot of that is now public information. So there's all these paradoxes going on with transparency, which is essential, and privacy, which is also essential. And this is where things get really shady and complicated. Not necessarily shady, but I think that where they've really failed all of these major networks is just not having an honest conversation with everybody about what's happening.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we heard about shadow profiles from Facebook in 2013. And that's basically they build a profile on you from information they collected from other people, and they never have to delete that. Because if you say delete my personal information, oh, okay, we'll delete everything we have on you, Bill. Then when I say, hey, delete everything about Tim, we'll say, oh, yeah, we'll delete all the information you've given us. And the shadow profiles theoretically could remain. I don't want to accuse Facebook of doing any of that stuff. But let's go to this next a big leak, okay? So you brought it up. Who was it, a co-founder of Facebook? He said something along the lines of, maybe you know the quote, but he said, even if terrorists use our tools and somebody gets killed, it's a good thing. We connect people. Mm-hmm. Like, was that...
That was a scary memo.
That was really...
And he was trying to say, I was just... I didn't necessarily believe it. I was just saying it to pump up the troops or whatever.
He posted a statement. He said, I didn't agree with that statement when I posted it. I was just trying to be like provocative and get people to think about it. It's like, no way, man. I don't buy it. Mm-hmm. Like, he said straight up, even if terrorists use our tools, I don't think there's any circumstance where you could jokingly or, playing devil's advocate. I don't see any reasonable person saying that.
Well, I think there's still some unintended consequences when you bring that many people together. I mean, you have it with bots, you have it with, I think you're going to have it no matter what.
You are.
Yeah.
We experience crazy issues too. It's when you congregate masses of people, stuff happens. And so but that's not to say that you frame it the way that he did, which is very irresponsible and just acting like they don't care and they're not going to address it.
I think the fair way to address it would be to say, connecting people is awesome. Bringing more people closer to each other is something that is changing how society functions in a good way. In my opinion, I really do believe this in a good way. I think about how we can actually tweet at celebrities. Somebody tweeted, I saw this on my Twitter feed, someone said, I bet Mark Hamill is a chill guy who would be fun to grab drinks with. Mark Hamill responded. He was like, totally, like, I'm like, man, how cool is that? It brings these high-profile individuals down, to earth so that we can communicate. Say that, and then say, unfortunately, technology can always be misused. That means we have to be vigilant to make sure terrorists who try to use these tools to kill somebody can't do it.
Even if you're telling the people who use it, be vigilant and watch out for these, because you might get duped. You might retweet something that is from a Russian bot.
Oh, yeah, you can't stop it, though.
No, you can't stop it. That's why the fake news debate always has to be about our own education, educating the community on how to, research, understand primary sources, peer review. Like, you don't use algorithms to solve that problem. You use actual real learning. I
just don't think it's possible. I mean, I was watching a piece from Vice News, and they showed this guy who is he believes Sandy Hook was a hoax, and he believes in these Christ actor conspiracies about like Parkland, and he was quoting articles from like I don't even know, but it was some no name like inewsbiz.info, and I'm like, here's the thing, this person lives in a world of conspiracy, and there's a lot of reasons to actually, when someone tells me there's a conspiracy, like a government agency is doing a thing that's nefarious in order to gain something, that's totally plausible.
Sure.
The government has done these things in the past. It doesn't mean I take it seriously. It means, it warrants a Google search.
It's just as likely as unlikely.
Yeah, and if you don't have proof, you don't go with it. But I think it's always important to remain skeptical. Unfortunately, some people, they see that, and when they try and get more information from it, they're not going to get it from the mainstream sources. They're not even going to get it from a lot of alternative sources. So they turn to these sites that think clearly, if I feel like something is happening here and they won't talk about it, this must be the truth. And they turn to these weird fringe, newsybizusa.website to get their information. And I will say it's also, there's a likelihood, there's a possibility that some of these freaky deaky little tiny websites may actually come out with a groundbreaking investigation at some point. Sure. I don't think it's very likely. It's like, lottery tickets chance of winning, but people want to trust, it's perception is reality. They want to trust something that's repeating their own opinion to them. And that's why we have the two parent trees of fake news, the hyperpartisan left, the hyperpartisan right. And then we have the more fringy, Occupy Democrats on the left and, what's a good right-wing alternative to like Occupy Democrats? Is Breitbart? I don't know. I think Breitbart might be a little bit more credible than Occupy Democrats. Mm-hmm. But Huffington Post and Breitbart is a good example because I feel like they're sort of opposites of each other. That make sense?
Yeah.
It's always so hard to do this because it's like if you accuse one of these sites of being too far to the left or too far to the right, then you're going to get all of their fans attacking you. How dare you insult Breitbart? They're the only real news. It's like, oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, this idea of trusting a site just because it has a name, that doesn't really make sense. Now, certain names do have levels of credibility, which help them, and your actions build up your reputation, and these are things that matter. But at the same time, independent journalists can bust out of nowhere and break something, and that's just where we're at now. It's both independent journalism and mainstream is on the same playing field.
So we kind of derailed for a little bit, but I think it's actually a good segue. We can talk about Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I'm sure even Minds. There's been this talk about fake news and how they're trying to deal with it. YouTube says they're going to put Wikipedia articles on these videos of big news stories and conspiracy theories. Facebook tried bringing Snopes in, but I don't even think Snopes is that good. I don't think they're the worst, but I think Snopes is kind of, I'm not a big fan of Snopes. I'm curious, what are you guys doing to combat this?
I mean, I think the community feedback in your own research is the most valuable thing. I think that I would consider more tools for bringing in a multitude of sources to further help the reader understand the different layers of the argument, but definitely not punishing things just because it's coming from a certain source. I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's something interesting, because I've talked to you before about Minds, but you guys kind of break the filter bubble a little bit. Would you say so?
Yeah, we have a pretty cross-spectrum crowd.
Well,
somehow.
Do you want to define the filter bubble for those that might not be familiar? Like, what is a filter bubble?
You mean like the echo chamber?
Right. Like, what is it? How does it happen?
So, obviously you build up your community and then you post to them and then you find more people in that community and you build this infinite feedback loop where you're just feeding off of your own ego, sort of. And so we built, Boost is one of the most popular features on Minds where you earn digital currency for being active and then you can boost your posts with it. And so every once in a while in your newsfeed, like every 15 posts, you'll see a boost. And that is essentially a bubble breaker because those are posts coming in from the rest of the community that are not necessarily in your immediate world. So, and we want to, I think user control ultimately is the most important thing. So if you don't want certain stuff coming in, you kind of have the right to create a bubble.
Yep, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I disagree with people doing it, but I agree they should be allowed to, which kind of sucks. But when it comes to these filter bubbles, people, they want to be in them. They're going to keep sharing, the people on the left are going to share their Vox articles, people on the right, they're going to share their, New York Post or Breitbart articles. And then what happens when the 15th post comes in and it's not based on an algorithm, right? Is it based on an algorithm or is it?
No, it's chronological based on the boosts that are requested.
So that's what I was assuming. And now here's the important point. Facebook has ads too, and it does deliver them, but it delivers them specifically based on the information they've been, well, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but stealing about you. taking information you've agreed and didn't agree to give them so that they can build a profile on you and then send you things that fit perfectly into your little bubble. And that just causes people to double down. Their bubbles get reinforced. And then what you guys are doing, it's actually, I think it's kind of funny because you could look at it from like a lack of resources point of view. Like Facebook is this massive infrastructure. They can code this crazy algorithm to just know everything about a person. And mine's, you guys, like, you know, when your office now, there's a couple people. It's a really chill, low-key, the opposite of Facebook, essentially. And so I feel like even if you wanted to implement some kind of like algorithmic tracking, you couldn't.
Sometimes simple things work for a reason. I mean, you don't have to overcomplicate it. And then if you want to opt in to further levels of customization, why wouldn't you give someone the opportunity to do that if they want to? But it has to be by consent. Like, some people might want to have tailored feeds for certain reasons, that's fine, but it shouldn't be by default.
But people have agreed to opt into Facebook.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, not the shadow data. But that's, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who said we need to own our data and get paid for it. If Facebook is using that, if Google, Amazon, Twitter, whoever is using that to make money, why aren't we getting a cut? It's our information. Why are they selling our information from? And I'm just like, I don't think you'll ever make money off your own data. What are you going to get, like a tenth of a cent?
Yeah, I don't know how that would work out.
Yeah, they'll send you like a needle of silver or something in the mail. Like, there you go. It's like 2 years worth of your data.
Yeah, if it's only valuable in huge masses, then
right.
Yeah.
It's still meaningful, though.
Right. No, I agree.
Tiny bits of value. That's why cryptocurrency is really important, because you can really break it up into such small amounts, and it's almost the principle, not so much the amount.
No, but exactly. I think we should own our data. I just don't think we're going to get paid for it.
Right. In any sort of dramatic sense. I think the people who should be getting paid on social networks are the ones who are bringing the energy and the traffic. And, that's getting swiped away at this point for some of the big ones now.
Oh, yeah. Like, one of the other problems with YouTube, for instance, and we can sort of move on to talk about this, market saturation. When social media platforms end up having so many users producing content, but the audience isn't growing as fast as the content is being produced. So what's happening on YouTube is 5 years ago, somebody would make a video, they get 1 million views, and they're living large, super happy. Today, because Facebook's audience continues to grow year over year, they get 100,000 views. I look at some news channels, I'm not going to call anybody out, but with 2 million subscribers, they're getting 10 to 20,000 views on their videos because it's just, the market is so saturated. Somebody, breaking news happens. Donald Trump did a backflip. How many? 5,000, 10,000 different channels publish a story about it? And now how much time can actually be consumed? So I'm curious, like, maybe you can answer this. Like, what do you think is going to happen when there's an equal amount of viewers, like everyone becomes a diehard content creator? Is it going to be just everybody will watch their one friend and there won't be influencers, or?
Yeah, it's gonna keep leveling.
Yeah.
I think there'll always be major influencers who are the most popular, but there's gonna be a leveling of the playing field.
It's getting worse.
But that is crazy, looking at mainstream social media feeds of these media companies, and they're getting less interaction than a lot of the independent media, and that's incredible. That's just that was the election.
They've got to sustain massive infrastructure. So. I mean, we came here to set this podcast to talk with you about social media and all this stuff. And we've got, this total rig we have is probably a couple $100. I worked for big media. They would spend $150,000 to come out and do this. Crazy ass cameras, floating around, filming all this stuff. And I'm just like, why? Do we need to see a fancy drone shot of your building? Or can we just talk to you about stuff that matters? These companies are spending all this money and they're not making it back.
Well, they're wishing they had it.
I don't know.
Because the media companies are losing so much money from advertising, because they're not tech companies. The tech companies are the ones growing.
Yep.
All the publishers are getting screwed, because now Facebook was like, oh, come publish your news here. You get all this reach. And then now you only reach 3% of your own fans on Facebook.
Yep.
And so even the big media, they're pissed at Facebook.
Yeah.
It's not just like, the establishment, media, and tech are together. Like, they're not necessarily on the same page.
I think Facebook's in big trouble. Dare I say it. I've had some conversations with some high-profile tech people, and we think this could be the beginning of the end.
Well, they just had their first quarter of loss of active users in North America ever.
Whoa.
Massive.
Wow.
Yeah, millions of loss.
Was it because of the delete Facebook hashtag?
It was before that.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
it's getting
great.
worse now.
Whoa.
I don't think that they're going to recover.
I'm gonna grab that quote from you. Headline: It's getting worse. Facebook loses millions of. Wow. See, that's the thing. I don't know any of this stuff. I don't even know where to look for it. But I feel like you're plugged in. This is what you do. So what's your prognosis? Facebook, are they doomed?
I mean, they're a public company that is reliant on surveillance to generate revenue.
Oh my God.
Them transforming, I hope they transform. I hope Google, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all of the companies they own, whatever, WhatsApp, they should all switch and just go the better route. You have to be open source. Otherwise, you're not in the conversation. If you cannot be a proprietary app and have this level of secrecy on the software which everyone's interacting with and think that you're going to be a long-term player. It's not going to happen.
Think so?
Yeah, no, I don't.
I don't know, man.
No,
feel
they
like
will still grow.
Yeah.
There will be proprietary apps that do it, but I don't think in the end people are going to choose. If you have a choice of a network that respects you and pays you and is transparent and helps you protect your data, and one that doesn't, and which are you going to pick? As long as the tech is the same, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Look, take two companies, and one of them says, you know what, man, we're going to do right by our users. We're going to take care of them. We're going to make sure everything is like super strict opt-in. We're going to encrypt all their data so we can't even see it, and we're going to make sure we're good about this. Then the other company says, so how do we grow? I don't know. You want to make a bunch of fake news and lie to people to trick them into coming here? Yeah. Who's going to get more followers? The group that's willing to lie, cheat, and steal.
Only in the short term.
I don't know, man. You look at these texts from Mark Zuckerberg from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Where he said there's this guy who was he's tweeting about this. He's claiming I hate to say he's claiming, but I haven't verified this, that he's one of the original creators of what became the Harvard Connect thing. He actually sued Facebook and won, apparently. This is all on like a Reddit AMA he did. But he posted an AIM chat where he's claiming that in this chat he says to Mark that with the data access you're giving to third parties, it's going to leak. It's going to be given and used for the wrong reasons. And Mark said something along the lines of like, yeah, there's no point even talking about it, so it's like not even an argument. Like, he didn't even care.
Yeah. And
then we heard that there's that famous quote that was repeated where Mark Zuckerberg said he called them like dumb fucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, man.
For giving them all their information. Yeah.
You look at how people don't like Mark Zuckerberg. They view him as, the meme right now is that he's a lizard. Like, I don't know if you know who Bunty King is, but this was actually really funny. There's this picture of Mark Zuckerberg looking very strangely oblivious, just like his eyes like totally wide. And then Bunty took the quote from Blade Runner about like, I have seen, the storms or whatever. Like, it was really funny. Like, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is like a robot, like he's not.
Well, and he doesn't try to redeem himself in any real way. He just doesn't even look. The way the media works now, you could have a 24/7 live streaming conference of all of the heads of tech and media. This is what we need to do, to be honest. And get everyone in a room and just sort all this out and have it going nonstop. And, have it all driven by live voting. And, you could dramatically change the world in days by doing that sort of nonstop live stream with access to the whole world. But, the problems just aren't getting solved. Like, if Trump wanted to right now, or any head of state, they could say, okay, I'm going to stream live 24/7, and we're just going to deal with this planet.
But look, there's a lot of things that politicians can't say. I firmly believe that we need more transparency, and an overwhelming majority of the decisions being made should be transparent. But I also recognize there are a lot of people who want to blow us up. Mm-hmm. And if you just come out and say, look, and I also respect a lot of the activists who say, we want to stage a protest. We need to make sure we don't go blabbing about it, because then it'll just be shut down before it ever happens. Mm-hmm. That is not to say, because I know this will get misconstrued as a defense of violence in any way or vandalism. No, I'm talking about like people who want to hold hands and march in the street and maybe like do a sit-in or something, or a blockade. That I can totally understand. But there's a reason for operational security. So Trump can't just live stream his life 24/7. We have confidential access. We have secret.
Yeah, but it needs to move dramatically more towards that. No,
I
he doesn't
agree.
have to be giving up the nuclear codes or
Right,
you know,
right.
secrets to bioweapons, but he, you know, can be gathering momentum for different, and he's using social media aggressively, and so are
Yeah.
more smart politicians, which is a good thing.
I think that, look, love him or hate him, the fact that Trump has used social networks has been a net benefit and a net negative and a net positive for everybody, right? So ultimately, I think it is better that we have a president using Twitter than to say we had someone who was being more secretive. And the reason for that is, if you do not like Trump, if you don't like him, then you can appreciate when he tweets something stupid, right? Because it's allowing you to get more activists, to show people like, look, this proves it. Look what he said. And if you do like Trump, he's being more open and honest and connecting with his supporters even. So you can see directly from his own mind what he thinks about something. I think that's great.
Yeah, and
You know-
there's a huge opening for the next one. Hopefully, someone way better than Trump, which is desperately needed.
Yeah.
And that could easily happen. I mean, anyone could emerge. That's really exciting.
You know, oh man, I always hate getting into the political debate about Trump. I'm not a big fan, but it's such a divisive thing. I feel like we can't, when it comes to an issue of like, is Trump good or bad? Was there an alternative? I definitely think we can do way better than Trump.
Yeah.
But getting into the conversation about his policies and what he does, all you're going to do is start the culture. You know, so you're going to ignite the culture war between everybody.
Well, it's the same polarization. Like, it's not black and white. Everything's nuanced.
Right,
Like,
right.
we have to be able to understand what is valuable from each event, what is not. It's just honestly really immature that so many major influential people fall into the polarization trap.
You know what you need to do? You need to give Trump a compliment sandwich, right? What is it, like criticism? No, it's a compliment, criticism, compliment.
Yeah.
I'm being facetious a bit, but here's something that there's a couple of things I find really interesting as we talk about this gun debate, and there's some social media issues we can get into with this, but Donald Trump has been relatively moderate on the gun debate issue. He has sided with the Democrats. He has a quote where he said, "I like to take the guns early." Apparently, he advocated
Before due process.
Exactly,
Yeah.
taking guns from people before due process, and gun rights owners were freaking out. And then he signs the omnibus bill, so people are, naturally a bit shocked in terms of Trump actually doing deals with Democrats, being more moderate. At the March for Our Lives in D.C., a researcher was there. They published this in the Washington Post and found that just around half of the people who were at the march were not there for gun control issues, and of that group, a decent amount of them were there because they just didn't like Trump, which is really strange because Trump's position on the gun control issues is actually relatively similar to what the Parkland activist kids want, like limit magazine size, bump stocks. Like Trump's been relatively leaning towards the Democrats on that stuff. So it's like you get these people who are like, I don't like Trump, so I'm going to go protest, but Trump agrees with you. Like, not entirely, but he's like closer to you than the NRA. Like Trump, I believe, this was like a CNN article that he shocked the NRA with a statement about like bump stocks, And so then to get a little bit hyperbolic, you have all these people who are claiming that Trump is a white supremacist sympathizer or a neo-Nazi sympathizer, and then they're clamoring for the government to take everyone's guns away. And I'm like, but there's groups like Redneck Revolt. Redneck Revolt is far left, armed. Like, do they agree with the gun control stuff? Because they're anti-Trump.
Right.
You know?
It's never that simple and that's the identity politics issue
Yeah.
that is just over. I think it's over. Honestly, we're starting to be over.
I don't know about that, man. I think it's winter. I had a conversation with Lacey Green about this, and she was like, I think it's done. It's like, no, it's winter. Wait till it gets warm. If it's in the middle of summer and nothing happens, then I'll say, okay, I was wrong. But we already saw in Michigan with the alt-right thing. We saw in Seattle with the Patriot Prayer thing. So it's still cold, but things are still...
I do think some of the initial hysteria over Trump's election is wearing off, but I still don't think people are thinking enough about what they're protesting before they actually go out and march and make signs and stuff.
Oh, yeah, like the people at the D.C. march holding up signs saying ban assault rifles.
Well, yeah.
Did you Google search it?
Well, when you have a mass gathering, you're going to have competing ideas. And so, even at Occupy, it was, you had the Occupy Wall Street, you had the Occupy the Fed people.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different ideologies, but using it as an opportunity to just reach more. So that...
But I mean for the sign saying ban assault rifles, specifically that assault rifles have never been legal, right? So 1935, machine guns are banned. And then, like, this is just, like, I'm not an expert. I just Google searched this, and I read a couple articles. I read some Wikipedia, looked at citations. The first assault rifle was World War II. And it was, some people claim that Hitler created the term, storm rifle or assault rifle. Some say he just actually signed off on it. Someone else actually coined it. But that was after. So machine guns, full auto, has been illegal in the U.S. Assault rifles basically mean it's capable of selective fire. Single, burst, and full auto. Always been illegal. But people show up to these protests with signs saying ban assault rifles, like they didn't even do any research. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, the prohibition argument, I think, that relates to not just guns, but banning things in general.
Marijuana.
Look at all of the different substances or materials. What works? I mean, does banning things work?
Nope.
That's the real question.
Yeah.
And actually, we're about to publish a sort of anthology of studies that proves empirical studies proving that censorship amplifies extremism and violence.
Wow.
So that even by Reddit, Twitter banning these people, making their little happy place feel nice, they're actually making the global situation much worse because they're pushing it all into these ghettos of extremity. And
wow.
Yeah, so they're not dealing with it face to face. So there's a really cool story of this guy, Daryl Davis. I talk about this too much.
Yeah.
Big
fan.
Yep.
He gets it.
Yeah.
We got to talk to him. Let's get him on.
Give us a quick recap of the
So
deal.
he's a African-American guy, approached hundreds of members of the KKK, befriended them, had conversations with them. Gee, what happened? Oh yeah, they got on the same page, left the KKK.
You know my favorite, I was reading an article about it, and he said that he was in a car with like a high-ranking KKK member. And the guy said, that, I don't want to use their language, but basically he told him that there's a gene within all African Americans that makes them violent. And Daryl was like, I'm not violent. He's like, have you ever known me to be violent? And he was like, oh no, it must be latent in you. So Daryl says to him, well, all white people are serial killers. And the guy's like, what? I'm not a serial killer. That's ridiculous. And he goes, oh, it must be latent. And the guy goes, that's absurd. And he goes, can you name one non-white serial killer? And the guy was like, and he's like, see? And he's like, but that's ridiculous. He's like, you see, it's ridiculous. He's like, how do you think I feel? Like, he had these conversations with you. I'm not saying he's right or he's wrong. It's just, the point is, he said that he never even wanted to convert people. It was that he just wanted to meet them and understand why they didn't like him. And then those people realized, maybe what I thought about these people is wrong.
Well, trying to convince people doesn't work. If you sit down and have a conversation and you're trying to conquer someone's thoughts,
right.
There's a psychological resistance that immediately goes up. Even if they want to agree with you, they won't. That's what happens at the family dinner table so much. Even if people are on the same page. So, the censorship thing is like one. There's the Streisand effect. When you ban it, it brings all the attention to it. Toothpaste tube effect. It's like going. You push it out one side, it goes out the other. Like it's almost it's the physics.
Count Dankula is the best example in my opinion. Right? So if you're not familiar, Count Dankula, he made this video where he trained his girlfriend's dog to get all excited when he said some anti-Semitic things. I don't want to repeat it in case we get banned or something on iTunes. But then he also trained the dog to salute Hitler, and he gets charged with a crime for it. Now get this, it's my understanding, and I don't know how correct this is, but apparently the defense made this point, that Count Dankula had, I believe, 8 subscribers on YouTube at the time. 8.
Wow.
Like, it was just, at the time, Mr. Dankula was just a random dude who was like, I made a funny video, I want to share it with, like, a friend or two. And what happened? Well, it got posted to Reddit. Someone found it, thought it was funny, posted it to Reddit. He goes to court, he gets convicted, 2 years, and guess where he's at now? Now he's got almost 200,000 subscribers. He's getting 100,000 plus views on his videos. So I tweeted this out. I said, if the goal of the UK was to make sure as many people as possible saw that video, they're doing a good job. Keep it up, if that's what their intent is. Because if they just said, you know what, it's some random dude on the internet made a video, just ignore him, he would not have the platform he has today. They essentially made him like a digital martyr. Streisand effect, perfect example.
That's it.
Or the toothpaste tube, what is that one?
Yeah, toothpaste tube theory. There's studies about, it was about anorexia, eating disorder content. There's like a fetish for eating disorders. It's weird, but it's all over Tumblr. And so they were talking about how banning it made the problems worse and amplified it, and there's a whole deep study of it, but there's been a bunch of this.
You know, here's what I say to people. If somebody is on a soapbox and they're saying a bunch of stuff that you don't like, people are going to hear that, and because they can hear it, you're standing there with an opportunity to say, wait, but that's wrong, and here's why. If you tell them they're not allowed to speak in public, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go off in the middle of, the dark corners, form their own little groups, and then you're not going to be there. So the people who show up to hear what this is about are only going to hear one side. When you delete these people from social media, when you push them into the dark corners, when you say you can't say this stuff, they're going to go to a place where no one will challenge them, and it's going to allow them to grow. But I mean, it sounds like you've got research that shows that to be the case?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, what can you...
There's like 10 studies. I mean, there was a huge one just done on Reddit of like hundreds of millions of pieces of content, analyzing the language and the effect that banning, all this recent banning that they've been doing of certain topics. And they said it worked on Reddit.
Yeah.
But then the scientist at the end makes sure to say that, these people just went elsewhere, and it did not substantially reduce the problem in any serious way.
There's was another analogy that was made when Reddit banned Fat People Hate and some other subreddits. What people likened it to was you had this giant ball of goo, this nasty, you have this community where everyone's kind of doing their thing, and then off in the corner is this big ball of slime. And so what Reddit did was they said, we don't want that anymore. So they took a big mallet and splash. And what happened? All of those little bits of slime sprayed all over the room. So when they got rid of Fat People Hate, what happened? Well, all of a sudden you started seeing comments pop over in a bunch of other subreddits. They spread the infection to different places. Mm-hmm. They didn't get rid of these people. These people are still on the platform. They just got rid of their little dirt hole where they were talking. And then when they started trying to ban users, you can't do anything about it.
And this is what we have to do. We have to bring the scientists together and put them next to the executives of all of these major social media companies, and it just let the studies speak for themselves, and you really can't deny it. So hopefully we can put them in a position where they have to reverse or open up a little bit in order to not make the social issue worse, but that's not going to happen.
Right, no, because what people do is, for whatever reason, they only ever think one step ahead. And I guess it's what people do. I mean, I grew up as a chess player. I've always tried to think as far ahead as possible. And I always ask people when they say, hey, we should do X, I say, okay, then what's Y? What comes next? And they go, oh, I didn't think about that. So think about it. When you ban somebody, what are they going to go do? Well, now they're going to be angry, galvanized. You're going to prove. These people are claiming, oh, we're being victimized, oh, we're being attacked. Okay, well, you just proved them right. Now they're going to go recruit. Think about it. What's the most, sometimes I call this it's like a Chinese finger trap, that the harder you pull, because it seems obvious, pull your fingers out, your fingers will come out. It doesn't work. It gets tighter. It makes it worse. You've got to think about it and then do something unintuitive sometimes. Otherwise, so actually, I want to ask you about this. I want to talk about policy on social media. I did a video a couple days ago about David Hogg, one of the Parkland young survivors, was insulted by Laura Ingraham. She's this Fox News host, and she said that David was whiny because he didn't get it acknowledged. He didn't get accepted in some colleges. David got insulted by David, high-profile person, Laura, high-profile person. So what did David do? He told all of his followers, around 660,000 people, to start contacting her advertisers to get them to pull off her show. And as of the time of this recording, about 10 advertisers have pulled off her show. Seems entirely disproportionate. But the question I have is, on Twitter, with 660,000 followers, he directed his followers to take action against an individual, even including her Twitter name. Is that not brigading and targeted harassment? Because when Milo was essentially what they claim to be harassment against Leslie Jones, he was tweeting at her. And they said, oh, but now your followers are going to start harassing her because you're tweeting at her so much. That's what their justification was for permanently banning Milo. Well, here you have David Hogg going one step further and flat out being like, go after her.
Yeah, they're total hypocrites. Their policy enforcement is completely inconsistent. So, and that has been shown time and time again.
There you go, cut and dry.
It's over. I mean, they started off as the free speech wing of the free speech party. That's what they were saying. You know, they bring everyone in under this context, and then the pressure comes on them, and they just cave.
Man, and you know the thing too is with this Ingraham thing is giving in is probably the worst thing you can do. Did apologizing help Laura Ingraham? Nope. David Hogg said he would not accept her apology, and then doubled down and said, hey, you know, like he tweeted like, what do you think about this? You know, if you're interested, you can help. He just kept going. Laura said, I'm sorry. She said, I apologize, and in the spirit of the Holy Week, you know, I shouldn't have done that. Doesn't matter. The apology got you nothing. And then you look at these companies like Hulu, for instance, tweeted, we're pulling our ads off of her show. And what happened? A wave of people canceling their subscriptions, tweeting to Hulu saying, oh, you've chosen the wrong side. Like, there's no way to win when you take sides like this.
Man, that's scary. I do feel like maybe David Hogg just isn't aware of what power he wields yet. And I'm hoping that he learns from it, but I guess only time will tell from that.
Though, you know, not on one side or the other, being able to move resources around in such an immediate and dramatic way these days is extremely powerful. To be able to have advertisers flow around and empower certain organizations, disempower, I mean, that's like the whole divestment movement, you know, to a certain degree, which is actually in certain ways can be a useful form of activism. I think that it depends what you're doing, and you know, there's always going to be disagreements. I don't agree with the whole immature level of the conversation that they're engaging in, but I think that, you know, the fact that that's possible is insane.
You know, so my point was that this kid, David Hogg, I think he's 17, is that right? Yeah, I think he's 17. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But huge following. One of the organizers, I'm not saying he's one of the most influential in terms of organizing, but he certainly was heavily involved in organizing one of the largest protests in U.S. history. And now you've got people saying, someone tweeted at me, I posted this video saying, you know, David Hogg is directing his followers to go after these advertisers not because of the gun debate, but because he was personally insulted. This is personal beef. You know, this is not political discourse. Yeah. This was some lady who called David Hogg whiny, so he said, okay, I'm going to destroy your show. Get all his fans, you know, his followers to start going after her. Someone said to me, oh, please, you're scared of a teenager with a cell phone. And I'm like, that is a gross understatement of who David Hogg is. And I say this to David Hogg's credit because he is extremely influential. He is extremely powerful. He has done a very good job of building up his influence following this incident, and more power to him. I'm not saying, you know, I'm for or against anything he's doing his activism, but I definitely think we need to be careful when you have someone who's willing to, on a whim, because of being called whiny, decide to use the full might of their girth to crush you, and then even after Ingraham apologized, submit.
Well, it goes to show that she doesn't have a good relationship with her advertisers.
Oh, well,
I mean, you should be making real partnerships, and I don't know. I mean, whose fault is it? I don't know if.
Well, here's the thing. Some of the advertisers posted that they don't even pick the shows they go on. They just do like a package where it's like, we'll air some on Fox.
Which makes sense because it's, you know, this whole thing of advertisers saying, I don't want to advertise on that. I mean, I don't know if it even makes sense because advertisers want to reach people, and I think politicizing your product and your company is really dangerous for a company to participate in. So, you know, it's their right to do, but, you know, computers, everyone wants to buy computers.
This is why I feel like we are walking closer and closer to the edge of the cliff, to like an actual conflict. Because you look at Far Cry 5, for instance, right? You're playing Far Cry.
Yeah.
And all these reviews are coming out saying that, oh, they don't think about Gamergate, you know, it's like, oh, they're, you know, it's, why aren't they talking about white supremacy and things like that? And then you have Ready Player One, which I just went and saw. We went and saw that.
Oh, was it good?
Yeah. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I had a heckin' good time. I don't think it's like the greatest movie ever made, but I was like, this is a pretty cool movie. Like, certainly one of the better movies I've seen in the past couple of years. Much bigger fan of Marvel. I liked Black Panther way more. Like, I love Marvel movies.
Thoroughly entertaining, though.
Yeah.
And if you get all of the references, like, it's very pop culture heavy.
Yeah.
And
I was into it. I was captivated. You know, these things are popping up saying that, you know, Ready Player One is ignoring Gamergate, and like they're fetishizing like white nerd culture and things like that. It's like, dude, is the movie good? What's the problem? And so, you know, I guess the point is, it's something I talked about after we went and saw Death Wish. The reviews from the critics for Death Wish are like really, really bad. Why? Oh, because they call it a gun nut masturbation fantasy film. You know, it's not about whether or not there's something flows. It's not about whether or not the game is good. It's not about whether or not Laura should or should not have criticized David Hogg. It's about what side are you on and who's winning. And so people are like, oh, David's just a kid. It's no big deal. On the other side, they're like, he's a power monger who's, you know, swinging his weight around. Like, even I'm, you know, guilty of that to an extent. But I think it's legitimate. They're not talking about guns. You know, if Laura said, I'm going to support this or that and do this thing that affects the world in this way, and David said, call for a boycott, okay, I understand that. She called him whiny. You know, so I kind of feel like we're going to walk off a cliff, man.
It's hard not to get triggered. Everyone's getting triggered. Even the, you know, anti-trigger people are getting triggered. So right. We all have to work on ourselves to not, and be, you know, more depolarizing and trying to understand the full picture.
I try to do that to the best of my abilities.
Yeah.
You know, some people say I do a good job. I don't know if I do a good job. I just try to be like, you know, call it out where it needs to be called out. But so we can, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the problem of, you know, I hate to say alternative social media platforms because it implies like it's not legitimate on its own or something, like it's a different one. But I think, you know, there's several different platforms that are just platforms that don't deserve like to have some like adjective placed in front of them. But what I will say, there is an idea that platforms like BitChute, like Gab, and even to a certain extent you guys are harboring, for the most part, the alt-right. You know, you guys don't really fall into this camp.
Yeah, not nearly.
The news organizations don't name drop you that way. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because you're successful and more diverse. But what do you do to, you know, so when we talk about the censorship, when Twitter decides to ban people, you get a big influx. You know, I'm not saying you actually do, but I'm saying a lot of people will flee to other networks where they're not banned. How do you guys make sure you don't fall into that trap of becoming one political faction?
I mean, yeah, every social network has those groups. So they exist, and it's just if you're consistent with your policy. And that's we've done a pretty good job so far of not going over the line. And so that subjective territory is where you start getting yourself into trouble. And there's a number of networks that are also doing an okay job of just saying, look, it's free speech within the law. If there's certain like site abuse, malicious behavior on the app, you know, that could get you banned. But like, you know, subjective political decisions is just weird.
If David Hogg was on Minds and he directed his followers to go after another user, would that be something you would take action against?
It depends on what they are doing by going after. So if you're inciting violence, okay, that's going after. I don't necessarily think that crowdsourcing to, you know, go after advertisers, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I was involved in a divestment campaign at UVM, where I went to school, where we got all the support and tried to get other universities to divest from, you know, corrupt corporations that we thought were ridiculous, that so many universities are invested in. It's actually a good way to transfer power and try to, you know, have companies invested in good things. So I'm not making I don't agree with what he did, or I don't even know the specifics of that situation. But, you know, to be able to say that on social media, I mean, I'm honestly not going to say, under Twitter's hypocrisy with the whole Milo thing and inciting crowds, I agree with what you're saying. There's weirdness.
Well, like specifically in that, when David tweeted her username multiple times, his massive following are going to start, when they respond to her, to him, she gets those notifications. She's basically getting every message sent to David to her as well. So that's, I mean, in my opinion, that's targeted harassment.
Yeah, I mean, at-name targeting can definitely become harassment. But those are the tough lines to draw. And honestly, that's the worst part about starting
I'll tell
a
you
network.
my opinion. I'll tell you my opinion.
Yeah, tell me.
I don't think David should be punished for it.
No.
I don't think Milo should have been punished for it. I think if you're on the internet, you have to hit that mute button. You know, I get
Block.
people. I've got a decent following on Twitter, and I get hit up by this kind of stuff all the time, and I just mute. I don't block because blocking fans the flames. People then see that you're blocked, and they start tweeting about it. They start sharing screen grabs. I just mute. Nobody knows you muted them.
True.
I just, you know what, man? Out of sight, out of mind. I'm gonna let them do their thing, and I'm gonna ignore it and try and just focus on my work. So when I see, you know, my main criticism is that David's powerful, and that people are trying to play it down, like, oh no, you can't criticize him. He's just a child with a phone and things like that. It's like, no. Very, very influential, very powerful. Whether you agree with him or not, I'm not saying I'm for or against what he's doing. Just recognizing that power needs to be criticized. We need to, you know, keep that in mind. But that's why, back to the point about social media, I feel like you guys are relatively standoffish. Is that safe to say?
I mean, we spent a lot of time building good report tools, good muting tools, good blocking tools, because you need that. You need the community to be able to help you understand if there's real total insanity happening. And yeah, you need to give people control over their experience. So weed out the illegal stuff. I mean, it's so much overhead. Especially if you're in the whole subjective world. I mean, those major networks hire thousands of people to be moderating content because of an art image that has a nipple in it. I mean, are you kidding me? Why are you trying to spend millions of dollars? So
wait, you're saying that you would let the nipples stay?
The nipples can.
So Minds.com has freed the nipple.
I'm down with that movement, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be forced in your face, but yeah, like what?
New York, it's actually legal. It's women can walk around topless.
Here's a fun fact about Free the Nipple. Men actually in I forget, it was like the 30s or 40s, were not allowed to show their nipples in public.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, men had to
they had to free the nipple,
and they did, and it's gonna happen with women. That's one of the main things. New York did. You know, people try to say, obviously within all the polarization, there's the women's rights, men's rights dichotomy. I think Free the Nipple is actually one of the things that does still exist. That is kind of a weird issue. I mean, with breastfeeding and these kinds of things, people try to say, okay, everything's equal. Well, that is actually one way where it's not. It's weird.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess going back to Minds, do you have any goals that you want to hit with Minds, or any features that you're hoping to get at some point?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're on the Ethereum testnet. So over the next month or so, we're going to be fine-tuning it, auditing it for security, getting all the developers and hackers in there, trying to break it, kind of, and because once you go on chain, you can't change the smart contracts. So, these are the ways that people are all getting paid. So we have to be really careful about that. We're just driving towards that right now. And obviously, all the apps are kind of they're coalescing. So every app's kind of the same thing now. Like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, you can stream, you can upload video, you can post ads, they're all the same app, but with different underlying motivations. Some have, more features in other ways. Most of them have all the same policies. So, we're just trying to catch up, and
when do you roll out Minds live streaming?
It's expensive, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, video is half of our cost right now, which is insane. And so decentralizing video is really important to help have the users transcode and deal with bandwidth. But all of that tech is really immature now. So
I want to explain to everybody real quick. My average YouTube video is 1 gigabyte. Okay. YouTube will compress that, so I think it falls down to maybe what's maybe 200 or 300 megabytes. Does that sound about right? So typically people aren't always going to be watching in high def, but they might end up downloading around 200, 300 megabytes of data from YouTube servers. Multiply that by the 20 or 30,000 people who watch, and that's how much bandwidth you need for video. Now do a live stream, which can go on for hours, which are streaming at around a megabit, several megabytes per minute, with 10,000 people watching, downloading 10,000 times the amount of data you're uploading. Oh yeah.
Yeah. One thing I actually wanted to loop back around on with Count Dankula thing.
Oh yeah.
Was that so? He's actually on Minds, and it was just cool to see the support for him with like Ricky Gervais, Joe Rogan, Jonathan Pye.
Oh
actually, there was a hilarious thing.
Jonathan Pye
that someone reported to, I think it was the UK police.
Yeah.
His video.
Police.
Yep.
And they were going to take him down for satirizing. It was like double layered.
Jonathan Pye did what was it? It was like a Monty Python thing, or John Cleese.
The Fawlty Towers, like
the finger under the nose, and then this. I'm not going to do.
Yeah,
the salute,
I don't want to do it either.
He does the salute and the goose step with the finger under the nose thing, in front of the sheriff's department or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he started singing "Springtime for Hitler." It was actually pretty funny. Jonathan Pye's hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
So that's a really cool observation, just having a community like that support somebody. And I think one of the things that people like the most about, at least in my circles, that people like the most about Facebook is having like groups, being able to have events, and even having like group chats. Mm-hmm. And I think community is something that if you could take that somewhere else, people would leave.
For sure. We do have groups. We just implemented live group conversations, more like Slack kind of feel, which is really useful. And events I would love to do at some point. And this is where the open source thing really matters, because honestly, if anyone out there is a developer, I mean, that is where the power is. Because you look at like Linux, which is the most popular operating system in the world. Most consumers don't use it, but for servers, definitely. A lot of people use Ubuntu and Debian and a lot of these kinds of operating systems, but it's powering all the banks. Yeah. And that's all open source, and they're getting thousands of contributions.
Well, it's free.
It's free.
Yeah.
The same thing should be it happened with Wikipedia, it happened with WordPress, so it's going to happen with social networks. And if we can get developers out there to help contribute features, then we can get to this competitive edge much faster.
You know, we just were talking about how we went and saw Ready Player One. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but the movie's basically about this massive virtual world that everyone kind of lives in that's relatively decentralized. Like, the point of the movie is that everyone's trying to, the founder of it died, and he's going to give away his shares to whoever like can solve his challenge, like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory kind of. But for the most part, with this guy to the picture, everyone's kind of just doing their thing. And it's like, how cool would it be if there was a social media network that wasn't really owned by anybody, that just existed? That you could go on and do your thing. You didn't have to worry about anybody stealing your information. Mm-hmm. You have to worry about, a lizard person with, trying to sell you VR headsets. I'm being. It's a joke. Mark Zuckerberg is not actually a lizard. You can get sued for saying he's a lizard, I guess.
But I mean, that's what ultimately we want to decentralize. Get it out of our hands more. That is constantly going to be the direction. I don't want data. Why do I want?
You got liabilities, man. Like, imagine a national security letter landing in your lap because you're holding it, and Facebook gets it all the time.
Yep.
It's rare.
No, every company has to deal with that stuff like that. So we want to get that out of our hands, but you also have to balance, user experience, which, most of these decentralized tools are really horrible user experience, and You're not going to have everyone able to even be on a site and talking unless you're using a central server. So, I think that, maybe someday we'll approach some sort of like a singularity point where we push everything into decentralized, we can get to that tipping point where cool. It's totally off, but it's just a slow process and goes
very socialist of you.
Is it? Why?
No, I don't know. I'm kidding. It's like it's like crypto anarchic, I guess. Crypto anarchy, sort of. I think the
there is a level of responsibility, I think, that is important for guiding the conversation, and the tone matters, and that's why you see with some of these other alternatives where they're intentionally riling things up, trying to make things more extreme, and that's a problem. I think,
that's bad long-term. Yeah. Bad. So there are some platforms that have skewed pretty far into one corner, and it makes them inviolable. Like, what am I going to do there? I actually disagree with a lot of the ethno-nationalists, for very specific reasons pertaining to my lineage. What am I going to do on these platforms? While we do agree, many of these people, on issues of free speech and expression and things like that, what am I going to post? I don't know. It's there's not a real audience opportunity for me there. Minds is so I use BitChute, because it automatically archives my videos. But even BitChute has like skews pretty heavily towards like a particular audience. In terms of actual engagement with an audience and comments and shares and write-ups and things like that, I don't even post this to Facebook. Facebook has become useless.
It's a waste of time. You don't get no engagement.
Exactly. It's just become totally useless. And so YouTube makes a lot of sense because that's where people watch the video. Twitter makes sense for immediate conversations, but I've found that when it comes to actually doing like a couple paragraphs for my videos, mine makes more sense than anything else. I think that's what's going to be like. I think I hate predicting the future, but I think I'm optimistic. I am optimistic. I think mine's going to do really well, just based on the reaction I've gotten from people. And I hope Facebook eventually changes. Let's say that.
Both. I mean, hey, it would be great to get all the reach back on Facebook. I mean, I was involved in a bunch of media pages on there that had like millions of followers and, you know, driving huge traffic years and years ago, and then it's just gone.
Yep.
And it's that's scary.
So
that's why it's important to diversify your social world so that you're not screwed when the time comes.
Imagine you're one of these companies with 100 staff members, and then one day your ad revenue is gone. They just say, you know what, 10%, 60, 70% of your viewers, you're not going to reach them anymore. And now you can't justify your existence to your advertisers. Oh, Facebook cut us off. Now you can't pay your staff. People get laid off. These people put all their eggs in this one basket, and it's bad. So, when I first started doing what I do, I just focused on Twitter for the most part, and I'd live stream wherever I could. And then I realized that's probably a bad idea because Twitter wasn't doing too well for a while. Like, they were shrinking, they were laying people off, and so I was like, I got to get on a different platform. So now I try and use as much as possible,
And I think torrents are going to play more of a role in the future. There's a cool tool that we're looking at called Scuttlebutt, which is, you got to check it out. But, everyone's blockchain. And that's really good for like transactional data. And there is a tool called IPFS, which could potentially store heavier content on the blockchain, but it's not one tool. There's going to be like hundreds of tools to come together to create a viable solution. So it's not like one platform. I mean, we, even ourselves, there's a cool phrase in open source world just called standing on the shoulders of giants, because that's what it is. I mean, we're all just building on top of what was there and trying to string it together and make it work better. And, we're using like dozens of amazing frameworks that it's just crazy to think how much energy has gone into building all these tools, and they'd be useless if they weren't freely available.
Well, we need to get more people off of big, evil spy net corporations like Facebook and to more so decentralized, not entirely decentralized, but more platforms like you guys. Like Twitter, I like Twitter. I think they're hypocrites, like you said, about their policies. But I like Twitter. I think you have to understand their rules, and their rules are unfair to certain people. But hey, look, you've got an opportunity. Same thing for YouTube. YouTube is a net positive. Facebook's a net negative. I don't really get anything out of it.
I can't give them that. I see where you're coming from. Yeah. I can't give them that much credit until they can just open source their code. If they did that, then I would be able to respect them. I'll still use them. I mean, they're good designers. So it's not there's great technologists, great people who work there, really smart, plenty of them. But it's like it's all sort of tainted when they're developing their app well.
It's a gigantic house of cards, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's got to fall over at some point. But yeah, well, hey man, thanks for joining us for this nice little fireside chat. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Timcast. You can check me out on YouTube. I have a video every day on YouTube at youtube.com/Timcast. We do these podcast episodes every Sunday at 4. So if you want to come back next Sunday, you'll have this nice hour-long discussion. Or you can just come back every day and I do short videos. But do you guys want to mention your social media?
Yeah, just hit me up, minds.com/Ottman, Ottman. Definitely hit me up in there. I'm trying to be as accessible as possible.
And again, I'm at Momes Molly on Twitter, MOMES MOLLI. Also check out Subverse on YouTube. That's Subverse Videos is the URL.
Yeah.
And I've got a bunch of different projects I'm working on right now, and I should be rolling those out shortly.
And most importantly, all of us are on minds.com. So I actually can never stop recommending it. I think Bill, awesome work. Really, really
Hey,
excited
likewise,
for.
man.
Yeah, I'm excited that it exists because I get worried sometimes seeing how they police their platforms. But Facebook is whack. Okay, so get off Facebook, or use Facebook. Do what you want to do. I'm not here to tell you, but I do recommend signing up for Minds, and you can follow me on there because I'm starting to focus more heavily on that. The only thing I really use Facebook for is to like chat with like 12 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like my actual core. Yeah. So I think when it comes to content, it's just anyway. I digress. Thank you all so much for hanging out and watching. Again, you can find me on YouTube every day at 4 p.m. youtube.com/Timcast. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and we will see you next time.